Hey everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA. I own Choice Tax Relief. We help folks who owe the IRS or their state at least $10,000 in back taxes. And while not all of our clients qualify for an offer in compromise, and make that abundantly clear in my videos when I talk about the offer in compromise program, some do. And for those whom we believe qualify for an offer in compromise, we represent them to the hilt, despite the incompetence of IRS offer examiners and offer specialists who will reject perfectly good offers in compromise. That's why if you submit an offer for yourself or your clients, you need to know. You need to know how to appeal the OIC rejection. Because believe it or not, I actually did a count of this. For year to date, the majority of offers we eventually got accepted were initially rejected. Okay, I'll say that again. The majority of offers that Choice Tax Relief did on behalf of his clients that were initially that were ultimately accepted were initially rejected, and we had to appeal the rejection. Okay, and I'm going to talk about how we do that in this video, and I'm going to use we'll start from the top. So, okay, so this was the initial 433 AOIC. Section 7, income and expenses, and this was the grounds for the initial rejection. Okay, I'm going to go through the whole process here. I'm going to talk about the initial offer. I'm going to show you the rejection letter. I'm going to show you our form 13711 that we used to appeal, and then finally the happy IRS OIC acceptance letter. So, first of all, look, this client was making $17,450 a month. That's a lot. Right? That's a lot. How did he qualify for an offer in compromise? Well, he lived in a high cost living area and he had several dependents. Okay. And he also had $4,000 of daycare expenses a month. Okay. Which significantly brought, his numbers down. So when you do the math, yeah, he was grossing $17,450 a month. But after you add up all these expenses, including the taxes, this individual lived in a very high income tax state as well, so there's federal and state taxes in there. We were showing no disposable income. Okay, none, right? Gross $17,450, allowable expenses $17,520. I think we showed a couple grand in the bank or something or a few grand in the bank or something like that, but we were showing no disposable income, right? So I think we basically made the initial offer for like whatever he had. Or was it a retirement account? I don't quite remember, but for some nominal amount of assets, a few $1,000s, right? Okay, and we thought this was a pretty good offer. We thought maybe they might question the child care payments a little bit because the spouse was not working, and they also had like a mother-in-law in the home, but the reason the spouse was not working was because she was in school. Okay, and we thought they might come back and say, well, when does she graduate from school? The household's going to be bringing in more income. And we had to say, well, this is a separate liability, right? If that came up. But that did not come up. The reason why the IRS initially rejected this offer was because they blatantly ignored several of our expenses, okay? So here's the rejection letter, and this is you get used to seeing these. Okay, I know some tax pros are starting to watch my videos. Get used to seeing these, folks, if you are submitting offers in compromise. Okay, so we've investigated your offer, and we submitted a $100 offer. We are rejecting the offer for the following reasons: the amount offered is less than our evaluation of your reasonable collection potential. Copies of worksheets showing our calculations are enclosed for your review. Based on the financial information you submitted, we have determined you can pay the amount due in full. You may qualify for an installment agreement. To minimize the additional interest and penalty charges, you should remit all or part of the $81,160 amount due. Great. So, and you know what? I remember this. Excuse the very light print on this. This was actually from the IRS printers. It was just a very light print. I don't know why. Okay, let me go down to the section here. There are tables. Here we go. Okay, so assets and equity was not a big thing. Like there was like $3,000. We probably could have fought over it. The client didn't want to. He really wanted to get this OIC through. But the main thing was on the income. Okay. Now, so interestingly enough, the taxpayer was making a little bit less money when the IRS by the time the IRS got around to reviewing the return. Okay, so they actually, instead of 17,450, like we had on the 433 AOIC, he was making less at that point, and they didn't question that. They just used the lower number, 15,984. Okay, great. I mean, sometimes the IRS does that. They'll work it. They'll change the number in your favor. But for the expenses, it was not in the taxpayer's favor. Okay, we claimed for the national standard $2,244, right? And I believe at the time that was based on a household of 6, I think, or 5 or 6. Anyway, because he had a new baby during the year. All right. They didn't give the national standard for the new baby, and so they reduced the national standard amount from $2,244 to $1,993. Okay. Health insurance. This was clearly taken out of the taxpayer's paycheck every month. Well, they didn't allow any of it. Other health. This is the out-of-pocket health care. It's a national standard, right? They didn't have significant medical bills beyond the national standard, so we just went with the national standard. Again, because they said the household is smaller than we were saying. We said 375. They said 319. Taxes, interestingly enough, I guess even though he was making less, he was getting taxed higher. So we should, okay, IRS, if that's what you concluded, great. Okay. We also threw in, and I don't think court order payments right there. He was paying child support for $991 every month. We literally had the court order. The offer specialist had this, by the way. We had shown them the court order in a judge, plaintiff, which is our client, shall pay the defendant for support of the party's child, namely the child's name and date of birth, $991.66 per month, beginning in July 2019 until the child reaches the age of majority. They had not reached the age of majority during our offer submission time, and they would not for a certain number of years. And he was paying it. Okay, we even submitted the bank statement showing the $991. I don't know why it's 4 cents and this says 66 cents, but this was clearly the child support, right? The $991. Anyway, so and they did not give that to our client. See, taxpayer claimed $991. We were claiming $991. There's the $991. They're like, yeah, you submitted the divorce. You submitted the court order and the bank statement showing that he's actually paying it, but we don't feel like giving it to you today. What? Child dependent care. We thought they would push back on this. They did not. This was actually being paid. You could say it's being paid every month to a child care center so that dad could work, mom could go to school, and so they did not question that. Vehicles, I forget what happened with the vehicles. It was kind of neither here nor there. But the big one was, what's missing here? What's missing here, folks? Housing expenses. So look, they're coming up with, at the bottom here, $2,336 a month left. So they're saying, hey, you could, in an installment agreement, pay us $2,336. But wait a second. Where's the housing expense? The dude pays rent for his family. Do you see housing here? They're not giving us any housing, right? We're claiming $2,661 of housing. Where's the housing? They're not giving us anything for housing. I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, clearly, like if they took the 2661, that would eliminate the disposable income, and they would be in zero disposable income land, right? So anyway, whoever put this together was all messed up. I know sometimes group managers are asleep at the wheel, right? This was the offer specialist right here. Sometimes these group managers are asleep at the wheel, but theoretically they should be looking at these too. We're going to talk about the appeal here in a second. I'm going to go over it, but I just want to say something, folks. Many of my staff work here in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area. That's where I live. But we do hire some staff remotely. It helps with time zones. There are certain states that we get a lot of work for with the state revenue department. We want someone who has lots of experience there. And we've had people who used to work offers at IRS apply to work for us here at Choice Tax Relief. And we've given them a fair shot. You know, my team has interviewed them. I've interviewed some of them. I don't want to sound rude, but let's just say we passed on them. Okay, we passed on them. And maybe that's kind of tinged by our just experience working with IRS offer examiners and IRS offer specialists who can't seem to do math sometimes and doesn't know their own rules sometimes. And I have, entry level staff on the resolution team who, well, not entry level, but someone with a few years of experience on the resolution team, kind of a junior attorney who's reports to me or to Greg, or an EA who's been doing resolution for a few years, running circles around the offer examiners and offer specialists and even their managers in the central offer and compromise unit. Okay, so we're not very impressed. Okay, we're not very impressed when people come and they're like, "Oh, I used to work for IRS offers." Oh, okay, nice. Anyway, okay, let's get back to this. So what do we do? Okay, so let's go to the rejection letter because it tells you the time frame. So if you disagree with our findings, please provide any additional information in writing to support your position within 30 days of the date of this letter. Right, so your deadline to appeal is 30 days from the date of the letter up there. If you also want your case considered, if you also want your case considered by the Office of Appeals, you must include a written statement in your response asking that your case be sent to the Office of Appeals after our reconsideration. If you do not send this written statement within 30 days of the date of this letter, you will not receive consideration by the Office of Appeals. We always request consideration by the Office of Appeals. Okay. We do not just, because if you just shoot back and say, call them or send them a letter and to the COIC unit or the group manager here, they might just reject it again, right? And if it's past 30 days from the day of the letter, you've lost your appeal rights. So we always, yes, we let the offer specialists and their group know that we reject the findings, and we also make an appeals request. Okay. So this form 13711 is how you actually request your appeal for an offer in compromise. Okay, so you put the taxpayer's info, everything. One of my very experienced enrolled agents, actually, we didn't have an attorney on this. We had an enrolled agent. Leah's very good. She's been in the industry for 25 years, I think, something like that. Worked a ton of offers. Our stuff. Okay, so basically what you do, and you can just write this in plain English. It doesn't have to be all kind of legalese. You can just say, hey, we disagree with your calculation, in this case, of the national standard here, right? Because you give the household contains 6 people, right? They had another child. You only gave us credit for 5. And also, the standards had gone up by the time we submitted the appeal. And so we said 2705 instead of original 2244. Okay. Oh, but that's not all. Housing and utilities. No amount was allowed for housing and utilities. Please increase the expense of $3,229. A copy of the lease and credit card statements that show proof of payment for housing and utilities are attached. Court ordered payment. Taxpayers required to pay court ordered child support $991. We already sent this, by the way, but just for good measure, we attach it to the appeal. A copy of the court order and proof of payment are attached. Out-of-pocket health care. Again, they only allowed it for 5 people. We were saying 6. 375 was the national standard for 6 people at the time. By the time of our appeal, the standards had increased. They increase every April. IRS publishes new standards every April. And so we asked for the 474 for 6 people. Bank accounts, right? The taxpayer's $3,097 checking account is liable living expenses are in excess of this amount. Therefore, no amount should be indicated on the AET, right? Because there's an example in the IRM. Right? If you just look at the 433 AOIC, in the asset section, you put your cash in the bank and then minus 1,000, right? Well, there's an example in the Internal Revenue Manual in the financial analysis section for offers that says, yeah, you get the 1,000 plus a month of living expenses. Okay, so we were pushing back on that. Right, and that was it, and that got us to where we needed to be. Right, that clearly got us to where we needed to be. We submitted this back to the same office that was working the offer. Okay, so that's these folks here, right? Um, and then in this case, so what happened? Well, basically, happy story. They accepted the OIC. Okay, they accepted it. Um, I forget if in this case it went to appeals or just the group manager saw that we had requested an appeals hearing. Sorry, and said, "Oops, yeah, sorry, we were kind of dumb," and they accepted it. I think it was that. I think we didn't have to do an appeals hearing for this one because I think the group manager just realized the error of their ways and said, "Oh yeah, you're right. We should have accepted it. Sorry." Anyway, they accepted the offer. Okay, which was great, and it was a happy story, folks. So yeah, I mean, basically, to appeal a rejected OIC, use Form 13711. Put out all your, make sure you fill out the taxpayer's info, right? All the basic stuff. And then just put in there's different boxes for disagreed items. Just put, what you disagree with, and just in plain English, like you saw I did. Actually, Leah did it. Like we did on our 1371. Just put in plain English why you disagree with the IRS's number, right? That's it. That's it. Maybe if you want to attach some support, you can. Okay, that's probably a good idea. And then within 30 days of the rejection letter, very important. Now, within 30 days of when you got the rejection letter, 30 days of the date on the rejection letter. Okay, so that's like, this date up here. Okay, 30 days from this date, you must submit that appeals request. Okay, to the office that worked the offer and where you got the rejection letter from. Okay. Anyway, folks, yeah. So that's how you appeal rejected offer and compromise. Okay. And then if if it's not worked out with that, the offer specialist, the offer examiner, and the group manager who from which the offer rejection came, then yes, you'll have an appeals hearing to be able to present the case to the appeals officer. And usually those people are smarter. Usually those people are a little bit smarter than the average offer examiner or offer specialist, and you may have better luck there. We certainly do. All right, folks. I know this was kind of a longer video. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, we don't promise offers in compromise. Not all of our clients qualify for offers in compromise. If you've seen my videos about offers in compromise, you know why. But that's not to say we can't help folks, right? We look at other things too. We look at penalty abatement. We see if we can negotiate some kind of workable payment plan for folks, right? Because, you call into the IRS and they're making the same mistakes, right, that they make here, like with the offer and compromise. And they're like, oh, yeah, you could probably just afford to pay us $2,300 in an installment agreement. When it's like, well, actually, no, their disposable income is zero. What are you doing? So there's other resolution programs that we negotiate on behalf of our clients. Okay, it's not all offers and compromise. But we do get offers approved for some of our clients if we believe they qualify for them. If you owe the IRS or your state at least $10,000 in back taxes, give us a call here at Choice Tax Relief. You'll get a free consultation. 866-8000-TAX. That's 866-8000-829. Or you can go to choicetaxrelief.com, fill out the form on the website. We'll reach out to you. I have some other offer and compromise videos here on the left-hand side of the screen for your education and enjoyment. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.